Hi, I'm Brittany, an American living in Germany, and we just bought a house in the countryside. We are in full renovation mode, just me and my German husband. And in the last episode, we kind of talked about how we met, how I ended up in Germany, and basically how we got this house. When we bought her, we thought she was in decent shape and that we could basically move right in. We were wrong. Definitely found a lot of surprises along the way, and that is what this episode is about. All the hard stuff, the setbacks, the messy things, the big mistakes that we 100% learn from, and we hope that you learn from too. We are definitely two different types of people with two completely different types of backgrounds. My husband is more of an optimist, and he generally doesn't think bad things will happen, and I am a constant worrier. And a people pleaser sometimes. So I also tend to downplay my initial instincts, well, the things that I'm worried about, because I think that I'm overthinking, if that makes sense. So it's definitely a learning curve for me to stand up for what I really think, but also try not to worry too much. And for him, well, the thing is I don't want him not to be overly optimistic, because that's one of the qualities I love about people. And on top of that, our experience level is completely different as well. I have my qualities, I do, but he comes from a family of farmers and hunters, and they have an apple orchard with over 120 trees, and he's been building things and growing things his whole life. He looked at me and was like, yeah, go plant that tree. I know how to plant a tree, but now I do because he had to teach me. But certain things were just not as simple. And it was that was a realization. I have no problems with planting a tree, but you're gonna have to explain exactly how it needs to be done before we do it, and that takes time. But I'm also the planner, the organizer, and the project manager, and so I've really just had to step up in those roles. I love organizing and creating structure. Ironically enough, you would think the German would want to do that. No, that's all me, baby. That is all me. I'm all about the meetings. We actually have meetings almost daily, but we have meetings once, twice a week. Family meetings, house project meetings. We're always looking at our to-do lists and checking things off. And so that is starting to really fall in place. But one thing that was really hard for us, and in the middle of it all, our little beagle Joy died at the end of January. And she was my everything, honestly. That was really hard to deal with. She was my first friend in Germany, and she was I'm gonna cry now. She brought me so much joy. Her name's Joy, but she brought me so much joy just in everyday life and little things. And that was really hard to process and work through, and that was really hard to basically manage because I've dealt with grief a lot in my life, and one of the things that's the crappiest is that life still goes on, which is really hard. So renovating while grieving, while working, while living in a construction zone, that was heavy. And I'm also sober. I haven't drank in 8 years. Yay, go me. And so a lot of times when big life things happen, I really have to focus on how to deal with them healthily and make sure that I'm really not distracting myself. I'm not running away. I'm not trying to numb myself. I'm really facing things. And boy, oh boy, is that hard. And it was a lot. And I don't feel people talk about these things. They're yeah, this is how you build a house. Well, how do you live your life and deal with life things while big things are happening to you? So that is something that we've had to deal with. So let's start with the money. We have 100,000 euros just to do the renovations, and the renovations alone, there's no wiggle room. And I know, yes, that is not optimal. It is what it is. It is what we could afford. And honestly, in this economy, we couldn't afford anything else. It was either keep on renting, which we were gonna have to move out of the house anyway, or work on a budget. So what basically started off with, we're just gonna renovate this entire home on a very, very tight budget, is now moved to, we're just going to renovate the upstairs and move in just in the upstairs. And that happened quite quickly. One money-saving decision that backfired, the heating system. Claudio being Claudio is a very long-term thinker, and he was focused on energy efficiency, solar panels, heat pump system, the whole works. And it looked really great on paper, and what we chose is a really great system. How it was executed, that that wasn't the greatest. What I didn't really realize at the time is, well, first he factored in like what the government was going to give us back in return for upgrading our energy efficiency for the house. Awesome that the government will do that. However, I personally know as an immigrant in Germany, anything to do with bureaucracy can take forever. So part of the money that is budgeted into our renovations is reliant upon us getting a portion of that back. So basically, before we move on to like bigger renovations, we're gonna have to wait for that money to come back. And that wouldn't have been a big deal if we didn't have such problems with the heating system company debacle that we did. What you have to remember when you're renovating a house is you're going to be juggling a million different things: offers, documents, contracts. You're going to have to review them, dozens of pages, and with us we have to get them translated, and he has to translate them and explain them to me because I don't know the technical things. I don't know like basically any of this, and you're tired and you're under pressure, and then you have the fear of the tight budget. And so you have to understand, when all of those things are happening, some decisions you make aren't going to be the best, and it's so easy in hindsight to be like, oh no, that wasn't a good decision. We shouldn't have done that. But it is what it is, and you can't hold any type of negativity when you make decisions that end up not being the best. So that is like my first tip for you, is take that into consideration before you make big decisions. Another thing that we did is the heating company offered us a discount if we would pay in full. Don't ever do that, okay? No matter how tight of a budget you have, just don't do that. So basically, we were really excited. We chose a heating system. It was paid in full, and then 6 weeks went by and nothing happened. And we went and called to check up on them and say, hey, we signed this contract. What's going on? What's the progress of you installing this for our house? And they sent us a new contract for 6,000 euros more. 6,000 euros more than we can obviously afford. And when we called them and said, no, we already signed a contract, you can't do this, they said, oh, unfortunately, before we can move forward with the house, you will have to. And we said, no, we already signed a contract. And they're like, well, tried to push us again. They kept, pushing that, and said, well, if you can't do the full, then you're going to have to meet us halfway, and you're going to have to pay half of this. Excuse me? Absolutely not. So we wanted to back out of our contract. It was this whole thing. We had to get lawyers. We had to talk to lawyers. We didn't get lawyers, but we had to talk to them and consult them. We had to talk to different institutions that kind of help you in Germany when stuff like this happen. And we ended up fast tracking it and talking to the head CEO of this company. And what the issue was, it wasn't the specific heating company that threatened these things. We hired kind of I don't know how you even explain it. It was different heating companies that partnered together. One person would handle this part of the thing that we need with the heat, another would handle a different part, and then we had a middle ground that was the sales department for all of them, and it was the sales department that did that. And when we found that out, and when basically the heating company found out what happened, they freaked out and jumped right on it and went into solution mode after we had to explain things to them, and we got all different sides, and it was exhausting and it was terrifying. And we don't have lawyer insurance, which is a big mistake I will not make again. I'll make sure I have I don't know what it's called in German again, but it's basically, it pays for situations like this when you need to talk to a lawyer. The biggest problem is that nobody wanted to take the blame, because if they did, legally they will be held accountable, right? So they're not going to take the blame when they do something majorly illegal. So basically, after we consulted lawyers, we talked to all the people that we needed to talk to. My husband and I sat down together with our own personal meeting. I'm in business management. I'm written correspondence teacher, and so I deal with terms and conditions and negotiating and all these things all the time. So we got together, wrote our own specific guidelines, set our own deadlines, and told them basically, if you don't do these things by this time, then the contract is null and void. They agreed on that. had it in writing. They also gave us a discount on certain things too, which was like for me a good sign of faith that they were like listening and they were taking responsibility. And how they reacted to the situation made me feel a lot better. We didn't want to go through lawyers. We didn't want to go through a legal battle. We just want to go, we just want to build our house. And unfortunately, like, I know this happens to a lot of different people, and I just really find it unfair. And I'm glad that we can move forward, but we'll see. They are going to be putting in the heating system this week, apparently. They're bound contractually to get it done this week, so hopefully everything runs well, runs smoothly, and we can be over this big hiccup. Basically, the entire experience just forced us to rethink on how we are going to manage the entire renovation process. It's definitely not one person's fault. There's so many balls in the air and so many different things that are happening, language barriers, culture, just communication. Everything's hectic and crazy in documents, and just it can be a little bit much. So it kind of made us step back and kind of think of exactly who's going to be doing what, who's going to be in charge of what, because what we had initially planned just was not working. And that's okay. You just have to be adaptable to those types of things. Maybe things would start settling down. Something else showed up. Oh my gosh, something else showed up, Leute. It started off with small little holes and old tools and in our garage walls. And then we started finding this hidden furniture in the garage. And then we started really noticing little holes throughout the house. And so we started lifting up floorboards and inspecting the floorboards. I went up to the attic and started really cleaning and scrubbing the attic, got rid of all of the dust, and that's when I found woodworm, a live one. We have woodworms in our house, and holy crap. We had just did another financial plan of how we're going to just not move into a completely renovated home, but we're just going to move in upstairs. And then on top of that, we had this whole woodworm situation. So we talked to a carpenter and woodworm specialist. Thankfully, as of now, no major structural damage. As of now. The plan is just treat it with a really, really strong spray, let it sit for a week or two, bringing our move-in date back even more, and monitor it and see, what it is that actually happens. We ended up taking down the ceiling, checking for the woodworms. We ended up ripping up all of the floors, checked for woodworms. Then we had our wonderful friends flew out from the United States, all the way from Washington State, to come and help us for a few days. And we sprayed the spray that the professional recommended to us. We took all the steps that he said that he would do and that he would take. We had already started a lot of it ourselves, and so he said, yes, that's exactly how you do it. We started injecting the holes with this type of alcohol, hard spray in the areas that we won't be living in, bio spray for the places that we will be living in. We're letting it air out now, and then we're just checking it every day, trying to see if we find any dust piles, if we find any dead worms or live worms or whatever it is. Honestly, that was a really big turning point for us, just having that support, having our friends come out. Don't get me wrong, we've had actually a lot of support, with Claudio's side. His friends are great and they come out and help us to do the difficult things. But really, knowing there's this point that happens where you feel like you literally can't take any more. It seems sometimes that when bad things happen, they just keep on happening and keep on piling on, and you just feel like there's no way that you can get through this. And then we shared our problems and they just showed up. First they said, well, I really wish we could go out there and help you. If we can, we're gonna do it. And then I would understand if you can't. That's a really big ask. But we didn't even ask. They offered, they tried their best, and then they did it, and they came out here. And we did so much more than expected. We were lifting things, lifting our stones, and just really heavy, difficult things that I know I couldn't do by myself. And we were able to start transferring our garden from our old house into our new house, which was a really big deal because spring is here. Spring is springing. And so we really needed to get that moved. But when you have all these big major things, you're like, well, that's not important, but actually it's really important. And it was just so nice. And it really showed me the importance of building your village. That connection and community is super, super important, which is also the main reason why we wanted to even have this house. This house is supposed to be for community and for people to come and learn and grow and do fun things and sustainable living and slow living. And I always kind of thought that after I built the house and after I renovated this house, you know, that's when my Kulturhof, that's what I want to call it, that's when it will come to life. That's when we can start. And it just basically made me realize, no matter how big your dream is, you can start now, like little steps, and you can do it with the people that you love the most, and just, or even random strangers too, but you can start now. There are people out there that do want to help and they do want to be a part of things. And it's easy to forget that with the state of the world sometimes. It feels like nobody cares and there's all this negativity and everybody's divided. But actually, it's not. Actually, there are a million wonderful, incredible people out there in this world, in my own community. I have neighbors that are coming over and not only saying hi, but are giving us and welcoming us with different things, giving us lilac bushes and trees and offering us tools. And it's just like giving us stuff, you know, that are run down and that they might usually just throw it away. But they said, hey, if you need to use this, we got you. And it's just been honestly so nice. And so even though we had a lot of really crappy things happen, we had even more beautiful things happen. And I really can't wait to show you the rest of our journey. We have so much more coming, we have so much more happening. Like I said, we have our heating system coming in, it will come in. And then we're gonna be doing the insulation, which I'm really excited about, even though we will need a lot of help for that. So I really hope you subscribe and you follow along our journey and drop your tips, and anything will help us in the comments. Absolutely, we're open to everything. We want to hear your experiences, your advice, or even questions that maybe we already know and you want to know. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we'll see you later. Cheers!